My sister's voice cut through the hall like a knife. "You're just a failed soldier," she shouted. Everyone laughed, until the doors opened and the general himself walked in. I froze in that moment, standing there in the middle of her glittering promotion party, with dozens of eyes burning into me. My sister's words echoed inside my head like poison, every syllable dripping with humiliation. Failed soldier, that's what she called me. That's what she wanted the world to believe. But before I take you into the fire of that night, let me pause and talk to you. Yes, you who are watching this story unfold. Have you ever been mocked by someone you trusted, someone who should have protected you? Have you ever felt small in front of the very people you love? If you have, then you know the sting that I felt in that moment. And I want you to know you're not alone. Please, as you listen to my story, I want you to do something for me. Leave a comment below. Tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much betrayal hurts when it comes from family. And if you've ever been humiliated and then risen stronger, share it. And yes, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because this isn't just my story, it's our story. A story of pain, revenge, and justice. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The hall was lit with golden chandeliers, glasses clinking, music swelling softly in the background. It was my sister's night. She had just been promoted, her uniform sharp, medals pinned perfectly, her smile wide as she basked in the admiration of every guest. She had worked hard, yes, but she had also stepped on me to climb her way up. I stood at the edge of the crowd, not in uniform, not in medals. Just a plain dress, hands clutching the glass I hadn't even touched. To her, that was enough proof to parade me as her failure. "Look at her," she said loudly, turning to her friends, her laughter slicing through me. She couldn't handle the training, dropped out, just a failed soldier. Laughter erupted around her. Heads turned toward me, even strangers smirked, entertained by my humiliation. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. My palms were sweaty, my chest heavy. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but I stood still, my silence becoming another weapon for her cruelty. My mother sat in the corner, eyes lowered. She didn't say a word to defend me. My father was gone, long buried with his own medals of service. All I had was myself, and at that moment, I felt like even I was slipping away. But life is strange. Sometimes, in the lowest pit of humiliation, fate sets the stage for your rise. Because that was the exact moment the doors at the back of the hall opened. A hush fell, boots echoed against marble floors, and into the golden glow of the party walked a man whose presence silenced the air itself, the general. His eyes scanned the crowd, sharp and commanding, before settling on me. And then, he saluted. The entire room froze when the general's hand lifted in a salute. For a moment, I thought maybe he was saluting someone behind me. Maybe this was just another cruel joke of fate. But no, his eyes were locked on mine, steady and unshaking. His posture was stiff, respectful, filled with honor. The laughter around me died like smoke snuffed out by a storm. Glasses stopped clinking. Whispers began to ripple. My sister's triumphant smile faltered, confusion flickering in her eyes. I didn't move. My legs were trembling, my hands clammy, my throat dry. But the general didn't look away. He was waiting for me. I raised my hands slowly, returning the salute. My body remembered the motion even if my heart had forgotten. And as my palm touched my brow, a storm of memories came rushing back. It hadn't always been this way. I wasn't always the failed soldier my sister wanted the world to see. I remember the first day at the academy. The morning air was sharp, biting into my lungs as we stood in formation. Boots perfectly aligned, uniforms spotless, hearts racing with both fear and excitement. I had dreamed of this moment for years, to wear the same uniform my father once wore, to serve with honor, to prove to myself and the world that I was worthy. My sister was there too. We had both joined at the same time, but for different reasons. For me, it was duty. For her, it was pride. She craved recognition, medals, applause. I craved purpose. In the beginning, we trained side by side, running under the scorching sun, crawling through mud, memorizing codes, saluting until our arms ached. She was fast, yes, skilled, but what she had in speed, I had in heart. Still, no one saw that. One evening, after a brutal drill, I was limping back to the barracks when I heard her voice behind me. "You'll never make it," she sneered. You're too soft, too emotional, you'll break." I ignored her, but her words stuck like thorns under my skin. The breaking point came months later. It was a night exercise. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the ground into rivers of mud. We were tasked with navigating through darkness, carrying gear that felt heavier than our own bodies. My lungs burned, my vision blurred, but I pushed forward. Somewhere in that storm, I collapsed. My body hit the mud and I couldn't get back up. My chest heaved, my heart pounded, the world tilted and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the infirmary. The doctor's face was grim. "You pushed too far, your body gave out. If you continue, you could do permanent damage." Just like that, my dream was ripped away. I was pulled out of training, forced to recover, and while I lay in that bed, my sister rose higher. She told everyone I had quit, that I had failed, that I wasn't strong enough. And the world believed her. Back in the hall, the memory stung like fresh wounds. My sister's words, "failed soldier," echoed inside my skull. But the general's salute, that changed everything. "Commander Hayes," he said, his voice firm, filling the room. "It's been too long." Gasps spread like wildfire. My sister's jaw dropped. "Commander, no, she didn't even finish training." The general's eyes flicked to her briefly, cold and sharp, before returning to me. "Your sister has no idea what you've done, does she?" Every eye in the room turned to me. My chest tightened, but I stood taller. Because what my sister didn't know, what none of them knew, was that being pulled out of training wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of another. After the academy, I hadn't returned home in shame as she told everyone. I had been transferred into a special program. A program that didn't parade its members on stages, but sent them into shadows where the real battles were fought. I had served, I had bled, I had led missions no one would ever read about in newspapers. Missions where lives were saved, though the names of those who saved them would never be spoken. And now, standing in that golden hall, the truth was rising to the surface. My sister tried to laugh it off, her voice trembling. "You must be mistaken, General. She isn't anything, she's nobody." But the general stepped forward, his boots heavy on marble. He stopped right in front of me, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "This woman," he said, gesturing to me, "is one of the finest officers I have ever seen in service. She has done more for this country in silence than some do in a lifetime of applause. You should be ashamed for mocking her." The room went silent. My mother gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. My sister's face drained of color, her smile collapsing into horror. And in that silence, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had carried the weight of failure on my shoulders because she had painted me that way. For years, I had believed that maybe she was right, that maybe I wasn't enough. But here, now, the truth was out, and it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who had ever been mocked, belittled, or humiliated. The general turned to the guests. "Stand," he ordered. And one by one, chairs scraped against marble. Soldiers, officers, civilians, everyone in that hall rose to their feet, not for my sister, not for her promotion, but for me. That was the night everything changed. But it was only the beginning of my battle. Because the deeper truth, my sister wasn't just cruel, she was hiding something. Something that would shake the foundations of our family and reveal why she needed me to stay silent all along. The applause still echoed in the hall, but my heart was pounding too loudly to hear it clearly. Faces that had mocked me minutes ago now stared with wide eyes, some in awe, others in guilt. My sister stood frozen, her hands shaking, her smile gone as if someone had ripped the mask off her face. But even as the room honored me, something inside me whispered, "This isn't over." My sister wasn't the type to surrender, not even when truth slapped her across the face. I saw it in her eyes, that flicker of rage she tried to hide behind trembling lips. She forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. "General, you must be mistaken," she said, her voice cracking. She didn't finish the academy. Everyone knows that. She failed." The general turned his head slowly, his glare cutting through her words like a blade. "Failure?" His voice boomed, silencing every murmur in the room. He gestured to me. "This woman carried missions classified beyond your rank. Missions that saved hundreds of lives. She has bled for her country in places you can't even point to on a map. Don't speak of failure when you don't understand sacrifice. Gasps rippled across the hall. My mother clutched her chest, tears streaming silently. I felt my throat tight, my eyes burning. For years, I had buried those missions deep inside me, the nightmares of them still haunting my sleep. And now, in front of everyone, those silent scars were being named as honor. My sister's face twisted with something darker than humiliation, fear. She knew the spotlight was shifting, and she hated it. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but sharp. If that's true, then why did she never tell us? Why stay silent all these years? Unless, her eyes narrowed, her words dripping with venom. Unless she's hiding something. A chill spread through the hall. Guests leaned in, curious, whispering. She had turned the table, trying to sow doubt again. My fists clenched. I wanted to scream, to lash out. But before I could, the general spoke again. She stayed silent because her work demanded it, he said firmly. The kind of work where speaking could cost lives. You would know nothing of that. My sister's lips trembled. For the first time, she had no ready insult. But inside, I knew this wasn't the end. She wouldn't let it end like this. Not when her pride was on the line. Later that night, after the party ended and the hall emptied, I slipped outside into the cold air. The city lights glittered against the black sky, and I breathed deeply, trying to steady myself. That's when I heard her voice behind me. So, she hissed, her heels clicking on the pavement, you think you've won. I turned. She was standing in the shadows, her uniform jacket clutched tightly around her, her face pale with fury. You embarrassed me tonight, she spat. In front of everyone, do you know what that means for me, for my career? I shook my head slowly. I didn't embarrass you, the truth did. Her laugh was hollow, bitter. Truth, you think the general saved you because of truth? No, sister, he saved you because he's protecting you. If people knew the real story, you wouldn't just be a disgrace, you'd be destroyed. Her words hit me like a blow. What are you talking about? I demanded. She stepped closer, her voice a whisper now, venom dripping with every syllable. Dad didn't just die a hero like you think. He left behind secrets. And you were always too blind to see. You're walking around thinking you've inherited honor, but all you've inherited is shame. My chest tightened. Stop lying. She smirked, you'll see soon enough. Then she walked away, her heels clicking like gunshots against the pavement, leaving me with nothing but the echo of her words. That night sleep didn't come, her voice haunted me, shame, secrets, blind. I tossed and turned, flashes of the past filling my head. My father's stern face, his late-night calls, the way he sometimes came home with eyes heavy with things he never spoke about. My sister had always hinted at shadows, but I'd brushed them off as her jealousy. But what if she wasn't lying? What if there really was something about our family, about me, that I didn't know? The next morning, I visited my mother. Her house was quiet, filled with the smell of old books and fading flowers. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, her eyes red from tears. Mom, I said softly, sitting across from her. Last night my sister said things about Dad, about secrets, about shame. Tell me she's wrong. My mother froze, her hands trembling. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, Claire, there are things you don't know. The air seemed to collapse around me. My heart thudded, my breath shallow. What things? She looked away, her eyes filling with tears. Your father, he wasn't just a soldier. He was part of something bigger. Something that, if revealed, could ruin everything. Her words sank into me like ice. My sister hadn't been bluffing. And suddenly, I knew. The humiliation at the party, the general's salute, the whispers of betrayal, it was all part of something deeper. Something that was about to unravel. That was the beginning of the storm. Because the truth, my sister hinted, at would not only tear apart my family, but force me to choose between blood and honor. And the choice I made would change everything. My mother's words hung in the air like smoke I couldn't breathe through. Your father was part of something bigger, she whispered again, her voice trembling. Something hidden. I stared at her, my pulse hammering. Mom, what does that mean? What are you not telling me? She pressed her hands together, her eyes lowered. For a moment, I thought she might stay silent, just like she always had when my father was alive. But then tears slid down her cheeks and her voice cracked. Your father wasn't only a soldier. He was part of a special division, a division that didn't answer to medals or parades. Their work was in shadows, in secrets, and those secrets, they didn't just belong to him, they belong to us now. Her words rattled me. Secrets, what kind of secrets? Her lips trembled. He carried files, documents, evidence of corruption, things that would destroy powerful men if they were ever revealed. He wanted to protect you from it. That's why he never told you, but your sister. She stopped, biting her lip hard. I leaned forward, my voice sharp. What about my sister? Her eyes lifted, pained. She found out, and instead of protecting the truth, she chose to protect herself. My chest tightened. You're saying she knew, all this time? Mom nodded slowly. Yes, and that's why she despises you, because she knows, if you ever uncover the full truth, everything she has built will collapse. The room spun. Suddenly, my sister's venomous words from the party weren't just insults, they were warnings. That night, I sat in my old bedroom at Mom's house, staring at the dusty shelves lined with photos of my father in uniform. My hands trembled as I pulled out an old box from under the bed. Inside were medals, letters, and one leather-bound notebook. When I opened it, my breath caught. Inside were pages of my father's handwriting, names, dates, locations, notes scribbled in haste. Words like Operation Silent Dagger and File Locked in Archive leapt out at me. And then, one line underlined twice. Trust no one, not even family. The words made my blood run cold. Not even family. Was that why he had been so distant from me, so harsh at times? Had he known that even his own blood, my sister, would betray him? I shut the notebook, my heart pounding. This was bigger than I had imagined. The next day, I decided to confront her. I found her at the base, sitting in her office, medals glinting proudly on her chest. She looked up when I walked in, her lips curling into a smirk. Well, if it isn't the family disgrace. Her words stung, but I didn't flinch this time. I dropped the notebook onto her desk. Her smile faded instantly. Where did you get that? She snapped. Dad left it, I said coldly. And it says everything about you, about what you knew. Her eyes narrowed, fury and fear battling inside them. You don't understand what you're holding. No, I said, my voice steady. I understand perfectly. Dad trusted me, not you. That's why you've been trying to bury me in shame, so no one would believe me if I ever found the truth. She slammed her hand on the desk, rising to her feet. Shut your mouth. You think this is about honor, about truth? This is about survival. You don't know what these files mean. You don't know who's involved. I stepped closer, my voice low. Then tell me. For a moment, she stared at me, her chest heaving. Then, in a whisper that made my skin crawl, she said, if these names ever come out, it won't just destroy me, it'll destroy you too. Because you're not as innocent as you think. Her words hit like thunder. What do you mean? But before she could answer, the door creaked open. A shadow fell across the room. The general stepped inside. Silence dropped like a hammer. My sister stiffened, her face pale. I felt my throat tighten. The general's eyes scanned the room, then landed on the notebook between us. His jaw clenched. So, he said slowly, the past has found its way to the present. My sister's voice shook. Sir, she doesn't understand. She's not supposed to see this. But he ignored her. His gaze locked on me, steady and heavy. Commander Hayes, he said softly, are you ready to know the truth your father died protecting? My heart raced, my mouth was dry, but I nodded. Yes, I whispered. And in that moment, I knew. Everything I thought I knew about my family, my father, even myself, was about to change. The room was heavy with silence. My sister stood rigid behind her desk, her knuckles white against the wood, her medals glinting like weapons. The general stood tall in the doorway, his eyes fixed on me with a weight that felt almost unbearable. Commander Hayes, he said again, his voice low but commanding, are you ready to hear what your father carried to his grave? My throat tightened, my fingers brushed the leather notebook on the desk. "I need to know," I whispered. The general stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a thud that echoed through the room. He glanced at my sister, his eyes sharp. "You should leave." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you want to protect her, after all these years of silence." His voice hardened. I said leave. For a moment, she looked like she might fight him. But then, with a glare at me that burned with fury, she snatched her cap off the desk and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Now it was just me and the general. He pulled a chair across from me and sat down, his movements slow, deliberate. His hands rested on his knees, his eyes never leaving mine. "Your father," he began, "was part of a covert unit called Iron Veil. Their purpose wasn't just to fight wars, it was to root out corruption, even inside our own ranks. It was dangerous work. Men who wore the same uniform could be your allies one day and your assassins the next." I swallowed hard, and my father, he was part of that. The general nodded. He wasn't just part of it, he led it. He uncovered things that were never meant to see daylight. Money changing hands, weapons sold to enemies, names of officers who betrayed their oaths. My chest ached, my father's stern face flashing in my mind. That's why he was so distant, why he never talked. He was protecting us. "Yes," the general said softly. "And no, he also believed the truth would destroy you if it ever reached you. That's why he kept you in the dark." But he leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Your sister found out. She stumbled across files she wasn't meant to see, and instead of standing with him, she made a choice." "A choice," my voice cracked. "What kind of choice?" He hesitated. "She aligned herself with the very men your father was trying to expose. They promised her power, promotions, everything she craved, and in exchange she gave them silence." My stomach dropped. The ground beneath me felt like it was crumbling. No, you're saying she betrayed him, betrayed us." The general's eyes didn't waver. "Yes, she did." I pressed a hand to my mouth, tears stinging my eyes. Images of my sister laughing at me, mocking me, humiliating me in front of everyone, all of it twisted now into something darker. She hadn't just hated me, she had feared me, because if the truth ever surfaced, it would burn her world to ash. The general straightened, his voice firm again. "Now you see why your father left this notebook for you. He trusted you to finish what he could not, to shine light where he could only fight shadows." I opened the notebook again, my hands trembling. Pages of scrawled notes blurred before my eyes. List of names, dates, places, words like bribery, weapons, traitor. And then I saw one name circled 3 times. My sister's commanding officer. The blood drained from my face. "She's protecting him," I whispered. The general nodded grimly. "Yes, and he's protecting her. That's why she rose so quickly. That's why she mocks you, because she knows the day you speak, it all comes crashing down." Anger burned hot in my chest. Years of humiliation, of silence, of carrying the label of failure, all of it had been her shield, and I had let her. The general's voice cut through my fury. "You have a choice, Claire. You can walk away, pretend you never found this. Live quietly." Or, his eyes hardened. "You can do what your father could not, expose them. But know this, if you choose that path, you will be hunted. By your sister, by her allies, by men who believe themselves untouchable." My hands clenched the notebook. My heart hammered with both fear and fire. I thought of my father whispering on his deathbed, "I'm proud of you." I thought of my sister's sneer, "Failed soldier." I thought of every moment I had stood in silence while she shamed me. And then I thought of the general's salute. I lifted my eyes, meeting his. "I won't walk away, not this time. If Dad trusted me with this, I'll finish it." For the first time, a faint smile tugged at the general's lips. He leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. "Then prepare yourself, because once this begins, there's no turning back." Later that night, I drove home with the notebook clutched against my chest. The streets were quiet, but every shadow felt alive. Every headlight behind me made my skin crawl. When I finally reached my apartment, I locked the door, drew the curtains, and spread the notebook across my table. My father's handwriting stared back at me, a map of secrets and betrayals. I traced my finger over one phrase. He had written at the very bottom of the last page. If you find this, don't trust anyone, not even your blood. The truth is your only weapon. Tears blurred my vision, but my jaw tightened. My sister wanted me silent. My father wanted me strong. And I knew which choice I had to make. That was the night I stopped being just a daughter or a sister. That was the night I became my father's legacy. But I didn't know yet. The price of carrying his truth would be higher than anything I had ever imagined. That night, sleep refused to come. I sat alone at the kitchen table, the notebook wide open, my father's handwriting staring back at me like a ghost. Every page was heavy with secrets, names circled, arrows pointing to accounts, notes about payments and weapons and traitors in uniform. It wasn't just a notebook. It was a death sentence for the people written inside. The lamp flickered above me. My apartment was silent except for the ticking clock. But the silence didn't feel safe, it felt like a trap, like someone was out there waiting. At around 2 a.m., I heard it. A soft noise, a floorboard creaking outside my door. My body stiffened. I slowly reached under the table, my fingers curling around the small pistol the general had given me earlier that night for protection. The sound came again, this time closer. A shadow passed across the slit of light beneath my front door. My heart pounded. I stood slowly, gun in hand, notebook pressed against my chest. The air felt heavy, pressing down on me. I crept toward the door, every nerve screaming. And then... bang! The door shook violently, as if someone had kicked it. Papers flew from the table behind me. My breath caught in my throat. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice trembling but firm. "Silence!" For a long, unbearable moment, nothing moved. Then a voice, a low, cold whisper from the other side of the door. "You should have stayed silent, Commander." My blood froze. Another bang rattled the door, harder this time. The lock groaned. I raised the gun, my finger tight on the trigger. And then sudden footsteps retreating, fading into the stairwell outside. A door slammed. Silence again. I stood there, my chest heaving, my arms shaking so badly the gun almost slipped from my hands. Whoever they were, they wanted me to know, I was being watched, I was being hunted. The next morning, I found a plain envelope taped to my door. No name, no address, just one line scribbled in black ink. "Drop it, or you'll end up like him." Inside was a single photo, my father's grave, fresh flowers scattered on the dirt, and a knife stabbed into the soil. I staggered back, my stomach twisting. My father's voice echoed in my head. "Not even family, the truth is your only weapon." I knew then, this wasn't just about humiliation anymore. This was life and death. I called the general. My hands shook as I held the phone. "They were here," I whispered. "At my door, they left a message." His voice was calm but heavy. "They've made their move sooner than I expected. Listen carefully, Claire. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't tell anyone what you have. And above all, don't trust your sister." I clenched my jaw. "She's part of this, isn't she?" "Yes," he said firmly. "She's protecting men who believe themselves untouchable. They won't stop. And now that you've opened that notebook, they see you as a threat." My chest ached. "What do I do?" "You do exactly what your father hoped you would," he replied. "You fight, and you expose them, but you need proof stronger than words in a notebook. You need evidence they can't bury. Your father hid that evidence. Find it." I stared at the notebook, flipping through pages, stopping at one phrase circled twice. Locker 17, Iron Veil Archive. My father had left me a trail. That afternoon, I drove across the city, every glance in the mirror making my skin prickle. A black SUV followed me for 3 blocks, then vanished into traffic. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, sweat dripping down my back. Finally, I reached the old military archive, a gray stone building tucked behind barbed wire fences, long abandoned to the world. The windows were dusted over, the doors rusting. I parked far away and approached on foot, the notebook tucked under my jacket. My boots crunched gravel, my heart pounded like a drum. Inside, the air smelled of rust and mold. The ceiling leaked, puddles forming on the cracked concrete floor. Rows of metal lockers stretched into the darkness, numbers fatting under layers of dust. I ran my hand along the cold steel until I found it. Locker 17. My breath caught, my fingers trembled as I pulled at the lock. Rust flaked away. It was sealed tight. I forced it with a crowbar I had brought, gritting my teeth, my arms shaking. With a screech, the lock snapped. Inside was a metal box. Old, heavy, my father's initials carved faintly into the lid. I pulled it out, setting it on the floor, my hands sweating. For a long moment, I just stared at it. Then, slowly, I lifted the lid. Inside were folders, cassette tapes, photographs. Evidence! My father hadn't just kept notes, he had kept the truth. Hard, undeniable truth. But then, footsteps. I froze, the sound echoed in the dark hall. Heavy, slow, deliberate. I snatched the box, clutching it against me, and ducked behind a row of lockers. My breath came fast, my heart pounding in my ears. The footsteps grew louder. And then I heard it, my sister's voice. "Claire," she called softly, her tone mocking. "I knew you'd come here. Dad always said you were predictable." My chest clenched, she was here. And she wasn't alone. Shadows moved with her, men in dark suits, their footsteps echoing with hers. I pressed myself against the lockers, clutching the box to my chest. My father's words flashed in my mind, "Not even family." I swallowed hard. My sister's voice echoed again, closer this time. "You think you're carrying his legacy. No, Claire, you're carrying his death. Walk away now or join him in the grave." Her footsteps stopped. The silence was deafening. And then her voice again, colder than before. "Search everywhere, find her." I gripped the pistol in my waistband, my body trembling, my breath ragged. This was no longer about humiliation, no longer about rivalry. This was war. And it had just begun. I crouched in the shadows of the archive, the cold metal of the locker pressing against my back. My hands clutched the box to my chest, the weight of it like fire in my arms. It wasn't just steel, it was the truth, my father's truth. And now, my sister wanted to bury it with me. Her voice echoed through the hall, smooth and mocking. "Claire, do you really think you can win this game? You were always the weaker one, always hiding behind emotions while I climbed. And now you think carrying that box makes you powerful." I gritted my teeth, fighting the urge to shout back. The footsteps of her men filled the darkness. They moved slowly, methodically, sweeping the rows with flashlights. White beams of light cut across the rusted lockers, moving closer, closer. One beam brushed over my boots. I held my breath, pressing tighter into the shadows. The man's voice came low and sharp. "This way." I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. My father's words pulsed in my mind. "The truth is your only weapon." I tightened my grip on the pistol at my side. My hand shook. I hated that it shook. But my eyes hardened. If this was the night I died, I wouldn't go down begging. Suddenly, my sister's heels clicked against the floor. Closer now. She was guiding them. Her silhouette appeared at the end of the row, sharp against the glow of a flashlight. "There you are," she said, her voice cold as steel. I stepped out, the box still in my arms, pistol raised. My heart thundered, but my voice was steady. "Stay back." She laughed, a sound without warmth. "You, pointing a gun, don't pretend you have the stomach for this. You couldn't even survive training." Her words stabbed like old wounds reopening, but I didn't flinch, not this time. "Maybe I didn't survive training," I shot back, my voice rising, "but I survived the missions they never told you about. I've walked through fire you can't imagine. And you know what I learned? Fear doesn't break you, silence does." For the first time, her smirk faltered. One of her men stepped forward, gun drawn. His flashlight hit my face, blinding me. I squinted, my finger twitching on the trigger. "Drop the box," he ordered. My chest heaved. My eyes darted between him and my sister. She stood tall, arms folded, her smirk returning. "Go on, Claire, drop it. Hand over Dad's secrets, and maybe I'll let you walk away." I shook my head. "No, if Dad died for this, then I'll live for it, or I'll die fighting for it. But you," my voice cracked with rage, "you betrayed him." Her jaw tightened. For a flicker of a second, I saw guilt flash in her eyes. but then she hissed, "He was weak, just like you. I did what I had to survive." My throat burned with tears, but I forced them back. "No, you did what you had to climb. You sold his honor for your promotions. You sold your soul." The man stepped closer. The flashlight burned hotter. "Last chance, drop it." My hand tightened on the gun. My knees bent slightly, body braced. I could feel sweat dripping down my spine. "Claire," my sister's voice was low now, warning, "don't do something you'll regret." I met her eyes. "The only thing I regret is not seeing who you were sooner." Then it happened. A crash echoed at the far end of the archive, a door slamming open, boots pounding. "Federal Task Force, drop your weapons." Floodlights blasted into the room. Shouts filled the air. My sister's men froze, guns wavering. My sister spun, her face twisting in panic. "No, how?" And then I saw him, General Hayes, striding into the room with armed officers at his side. His voice was thunder. "Step away from her." The men hesitated. Some dropped their guns, others ran for the shadows. My sister stood frozen, her fists clenched, her face pale. "Don't listen to him," she screamed. "She's lying, she stole classified files." The general's eyes narrowed. "No, she's doing what your father died trying to do, expose the rot you've been feeding on." I staggered forward, the box heavy in my arms, tears finally breaking free. "She betrayed him," I choked out, pointing at my sister. "She betrayed us all." For a moment the room was silent. Officers turned toward her. Flashlights illuminated her pale, trembling face. My sister's eyes darted wildly, searching for escape. Then, in a sudden burst of rage, she grabbed a gun from one of her men and aimed it at me. Gasps erupted. "No one takes this from me," she screamed. The room exploded into chaos. Officers shouted, guns raised, the general barked commands. But all I saw was her face. My sister, the girl I had once trained with, laughed with, dreamed with, now aiming death at me. I raised my pistol, my hands shaking. Tears blurred my vision. "Don't do this," I cried. "Don't make me." Her finger tightened on the trigger, her eyes wild. And in that suspended second, I knew, only one of us would walk away. Her finger trembled on the trigger, mine did too. The silence in the archive was deafening, broken only by the pounding of my heart in my ears. Flashlights from the task force cut through the dust, illuminating every sharp line of her face. My sister, my blood, stood just a few feet away, her eyes wild with desperation, the gun shaking in her grip. "Drop it, Claire," she screamed. "You don't understand. If you take this any further, they'll kill us both." Tears blurred my vision, but I did lower my weapon. My voice cracked with rage and grief. "No, they'll only kill me if I stay silent. You've already sold yourself to them. You're one of them now." Her lips curled, her voice trembling. "I did it to survive. You think Dad was a hero. He was a fool. He died because he didn't know when to stop." The words ripped through me like bullets. My father's memory, tarnished by her bitterness. "Enough," I shouted, my voice breaking. "Don't you dare call him a fool. He carried the truth until it killed him, and I'll carry it too, even if it kills me." The general's voice boomed behind us. "Put the gun down, Lieutenant." My sister's body stiffened at the sound of her rank. For a moment, I saw something flash in her eyes, fear, shame, regret. But then it was gone, replaced by the fire of rage. She screamed, "I won't lose everything because of her." Her finger pressed the trigger. A gunshot split the air. For a split second, I thought it was mine. The sound thundered through the chamber, echoing against steel. My body flinched. But it wasn't me who fired. And it wasn't me who fell. I stared in shock as my sister staggered back, her gun clattering to the floor. A red stain spread across her shoulder, her face twisted in pain. She collapsed against a locker, clutching her arm, her breath ragged. The task force officer who had fired stood steady, gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. The general's voice thundered again. "Weapons down, no more shots." The room froze. My pistol slipped from my fingers, clattering to the ground. My knees shook. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled forward, the box still clutched against me until I stood over her. My sister looked up at me, her face pale, eyes wide with pain and fury. "You," she rasped, "you ruined everything." Tears streaked my face. "No," I whispered, "you ruined yourself." Her lips twisted, her voice weak but venomous. "You think this ends with me? You think exposing me will fix anything? You don't know how deep it goes, Claire. You're already dead, you just don't see it yet." Her words chilled me to the bone. Officers rushed forward, restraining her, pulling her arms behind her back despite her cries. Blood stained her sleeve. She struggled, but it was no use. The cuffs clicked into place. The general stepped beside me, his hand heavy on my shoulder. His voice was steady, but low enough only I could hear. This was never going to end with her. She was just a pawn in something far bigger. I turned to him, my face wet with tears. "Then what do we do now?" He looked down at the box in my arms, his eyes grim. "We open it, and we burn their empire down." Hours later, at headquarters, I sat in a dimly lit room with the general and 2 trusted officers. The box lay open on the table between us. Inside, the files spread like poison, their secrets spilling into the light. Photographs of generals shaking hands with known enemies. Bank records of transfers in the millions. Audio tapes of conversations about deals that betrayed soldiers on the ground. It was worse than I had imagined. My father hadn't just uncovered corruption. He had uncovered rot so deep it reached the highest ranks. One tape in particular made my stomach twist. A voice I recognized instantly, my sister's commanding officer. "She'll keep quiet. She knows her career depends on us. And if her sister ever stumbles onto the truth, well, accidents happen." My chest heaved, my hands clenched into fists. My father had been right. They never planned to let the truth live. The general leaned back in his chair, his face shadowed. "This is enough to start an investigation. But if we move too fast, they'll bury it before it ever sees the light. We need to be careful, strategic." I shook my head, my voice trembling. "No, we need to show the world. We need to make sure everyone knows before they can silence us." The general studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You're your father's daughter." The weight of his words hit me like a tide. My father, the man I thought I had disappointed, the man whose silence had crushed me, now his legacy was alive in my hands. But my sister's warning still echoed in my head. "You don't know how deep it goes." I looked at the files, the evidence of betrayal stacked before me. My sister was in chains. My father was gone. And I was standing at the edge of a war I might not survive. That night, as I left headquarters, the city lights blurred through my tears. I clutched the medal in my pocket, the one the general had given me after my service in the shadows. For the first time, I understood its weight. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for him, for every soldier betrayed, for the truth. Even if it cost me everything. The next morning, I stood at the courthouse steps, the weight of my father's files heavy in my hands. Reporters swarmed like vultures, microphones and cameras flashing as they shouted questions. "Commander Hayes, is it true your sister has been arrested? Do you have evidence of corruption at the highest levels? Are you risking your life by coming forward?" Their voices blurred together. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart. The general had warned me. Once this evidence sees the light, they'll do everything to stop you. They'll destroy you if they can't destroy the truth. But I had made my choice. I stepped forward, my boots steady on the marble steps. "Yes," I said loudly, my voice carrying over the chaos. "I have proof. Proof my father died protecting. Proof that officers you trust betrayed the very oath they swore, and today I will show the world." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters leaned forward, their pens scratching furiously, cameras flashing like lightning. For the first time, I didn't feel like a disgrace. I felt like a soldier. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. The files sat in a sealed box on the prosecution's table, guarded by 2 officers. My sister sat across from me, her arm bandaged, her wrists in cuffs, her eyes bored into mine, venomous and wild. When the judge entered, the room fell silent. "Proceed," he said firmly. The prosecutor stood, opening the box with deliberate care. He pulled out a folder and held it up for the court. These are authentic military records, detailing illegal transactions, treasonous deals, and conspiracies against the very soldiers sworn to serve. These files connect to multiple high-ranking officers. Objection, a defense lawyer barked, rising to his feet. This is fabricated, a smear campaign. The judge narrowed his eyes. Overruled, continue. The prosecutor pressed play on a cassette tape. Static filled the room, then a voice clear, commanding. Move the weapons, payment has already been arranged, and silence her if she ever gets close. The voice was unmistakable, my sister's commanding officer. Gasps exploded in the courtroom, reporters scribbled furiously, the judge pounded his gavel for silence. I turned my head slowly toward my sister. Her face had gone pale, her lips trembling. For the first time, she had nothing to say. But just as the prosecution prepared to present the next tape, chaos erupted. The back doors of the courtroom slammed open. A man strode in, flanked by armed guards. His uniform gleamed with medals. His face was one I recognized instantly, the very officer whose voice had just filled the room. General Roth. The courtroom froze. Even the judge's gavel hesitated in midair. He walked down the aisle with a calm arrogance, as though he owned the very walls around him. His guards spread out, their presence suffocating. Stop this circus, he barked, his voice booming. These so-called files are nothing but lies. The prosecutor stammered, General Roth, you have no authority to. On the contrary, Roth interrupted, pulling a document from his jacket. By executive order, this trial is suspended, effective immediately. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters shouted over each other. The judge's face darkened with fury. This court will not be intimidated. But Roth smirked, leaning forward. You think this courtroom is stronger than the men who run this country? Think again. My fists clenched on the table. I could feel my sister's eyes burning into me, triumphant again. She smirked faintly, as if to say, I told you, you don't know how deep it goes. The judge slammed his gavel. Order, this evidence is under my jurisdiction, and it will be heard. But Roth's guards were already moving toward the prosecution's table. One seized the tapes. Another reached for the files. No, I shouted, rising to my feet. My voice shook the silence. You can't bury this. My father died for this. Roth turned his head, his cold eyes locking on me. His lips curled into a smile that made my skin crawl. Ah, the daughter, always so eager to play hero. He leaned closer, his voice low but carrying. Your father didn't die for the truth. He died because he believed he could fight men like me. His words cut deeper than any blade. I lunged forward, but the general's hand landed on my shoulder, steadying me. Not here, he whispered. Not like this. Tears stung my eyes. I looked around, the reporters shouting, the judge pounding for order, Roth's guards stealing the very proof I had risked my life to protect. And in that moment, I realized, my fight wasn't over, it was only beginning. That night, I sat in a dim motel room, the general across from me. My sister had been dragged away again, screaming that she would never take the fall alone. Roth had walked free, untouchable, shielded by power. I stared at my trembling hands. They took everything, the files, the tapes, everything my father left. The general's eyes narrowed. Not everything. Your father was smarter than that. He wouldn't put all his cards in one box. If Roth moved this fast, it's because he knows there's something else out there, something bigger, something he hasn't found. I looked up, my chest tightening. Another cache. The general nodded. Yes, your father trusted you. If you follow his trail, you'll find it. And this time, we won't bring it to a courtroom they control. We'll bring it to the people, to the world. My tears burned with rage and resolve. Then that's what we'll do. No more silence, no more fear. But outside, across the street, headlights flickered. A black SUV waited, its engine purring softly. Inside, General Roth sat in the backseat, watching my motel window with a predator's smile. He leaned forward and whispered to his driver, She thinks she can fight me. Let's see how long she survives. The SUV pulled away into the night. The motel room smelled of stale coffee and dust. I sat on the edge of the bed, my father's notebook spread open on my lap. My fingers traced the words over and over, as if pressing harder would make new answers appear. The general stood by the window, the blinds tilted just enough for him to scan the street outside. His silhouette was sharp, unmoving, like a statue carved from old battles. "They took the box," I whispered, my voice hollow. "All that evidence gone, everything he died for." "No," the general cut in firmly. "Not everything. Roth wouldn't have moved that quickly if the files we showed were the whole story. He knows your father left more. The question is where." I flipped another page in the notebook. My father's handwriting slanted urgently across the paper. Lists of names, sketches of maps, coordinates half finished. My eyes caught on a line scrawled in the margin, faint but underlined twice. "Where the silence echoes." My brow furrowed. What does that mean? The general leaned over, his gaze following mine. His jaw tightened. "It's a code. Your father used phrases like that when he wanted to hide something. Silence echoes. It has to be a place." I racked my brain, scanning through childhood memories. Then it hit me. The bunker. Years ago, my father had taken me and my sister deep into the woods. There, hidden beneath a hollowed hill, was an old training bunker. He called it the place where silence echoes. Every sound you made inside bounced back 100 times louder. It was where he drilled us in discipline, in control. My heart pounded. The bunker, that's where it is. We left before dawn. The drive through the forest was long, the dirt road rough, trees looming like dark sentinels. Fog curled low across the ground, swallowing the headlights. When we finally arrived, my breath caught. The entrance was half buried beneath vines and fallen branches. Time had tried to erase it, but the steel door still stood, weathered but unbroken. The general and I pulled the vines aside, our boots crunching in the damp leaves. My hands trembled as I entered the code I remembered from childhood, my father's service number. With a grinding groan, the door unlocked. Inside, the bunker smelled of rust and earth. The air was thick with damp silence. My footsteps echoed, bouncing off the cold concrete walls, where the silence echoes. My father's words rang in my ears. We moved deeper, flashlights cutting through the dark. Dust coated the air, every particle glowing in the beam. Rows of shelves stretched into the shadows, some collapsed, others bare. And then, at the far wall, I saw it. A steel cabinet, untouched, a lock still intact. My pulse raced. I rushed forward, dropping to my knees. "This is it," I whispered. "It has to be." The general knelt beside me, working the lock. His hands were steady, practiced. After a tense minute, it snapped open. Inside were folders wrapped in plastic, labeled in my father's handwriting. Alongside them, cassette tapes, photographs, and a hard drive. I lifted one folder, my hands trembling. On the front, my father had written, "If found, deliver to the people, not the courts, not the commanders, the people." Tears blurred my vision. He knew they'd bury it if it went through the system. The general's voice was low but steady. "Your father wasn't just fighting corruption. He was fighting a machine built to protect it." But before relief could settle, the faint crunch of gravel outside echoed into the bunker. We froze. The general's hand shot up, signaling silence. He turned off his flashlight, plunging us into near darkness. Footsteps, multiple, heavy. A voice floated down into the bunker, cold, confident. "Claire, I told you before, you don't know how deep this goes." My blood ran cold. My sister. Her voice dripped with venom, even through the echo. "You think putting me in chains would stop me? Did you forget whose men you're dealing with?" The general cursed under his breath. "She's out. Someone pulled strings." My grip on the folder tightened. Rage burned through my fear. "She won't take this, not this time." The general leaned close, whispering, "We have two options, fight our way out or disappear with the files before they surround us. But if we disappear, she'll come after your mother next. And you know it." My jaw clenched. He was right. My mother was vulnerable. The footsteps grew louder, closer to the door. My sister's laughter echoed through the hall. "Come out, Claire, be smart for once in your life. Hand it over, and maybe I'll let you live long enough to regret it." My teeth ground together. I'm done handing things over." The general raised his weapon. "Then get ready, they won't hesitate." I tucked the hard drive into my jacket, clutching the folder tight. My father's words burned in my mind. "The truth is your only weapon." And I was ready to wield it. The first shadow darkened the doorway. A beam of light swept across the bunker. The general fired first. A sharp crack split the silence, and chaos erupted. Shouts, gunfire, the bunker roared with echoes. I dove behind a shelf, clutching the evidence against my chest as bullets tore through the air. Sparks flew as metal ricocheted. Dust rained from the ceiling. "Claire," my sister's voice cut through the storm. "Don't be stupid. You won't make it out alive with that box." My chest heaved, tears blurring my vision. I shouted back, my voice raw, "Then I'll die with it, but the world will still hear the truth." The general pulled me toward a side passage I had forgotten existed. "This way, now." We sprinted down the narrow hall, gunfire chasing us, shouts echoing closer. My boots pounded against concrete, my lungs burning. We burst through a rusted hatch at the far end, stumbling into the forest. The cold night air hit my face like ice. Behind us, the bunker thundered with battle. I clutched the folder tight, my father's words like fire in my veins. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. The night air clawed at my lungs as we tore through the forest, branches whipping at my face. My boots sank into the damp earth, but I didn't stop. Not with the folder pressed against my chest, not with the hard drive hidden inside my jacket. My father's voice pounded in my head. "Deliver it to the people, not the courts, not the commanders, the people." Behind us, faint shouts still echoed from the bunker. My sister's voice cut through the night like a jagged blade. "Claire, you won't escape me." The general kept his stride steady, his eyes sharp even in the darkness. "She'll follow us, but we have distance. We need to move fast." We broke into a clearing, moonlight spilling across the grass. His SUV waited at the edge of the tree line. As we climbed in, tires spitting gravel, I clutched the evidence tighter. My chest ached with the weight of it all. My father's secrets, my sister's betrayal, Roth's shadow hanging over every move. The general glanced at me. "We can't go back to HQ. Roth's men will be there waiting. If we want this evidence to survive, we go straight to the press. Somewhere public. Somewhere they can't silence us without being seen." I nodded, my throat tight. "Then we go now, before she catches us." By dawn, we were in the city. The streets buzzed with morning traffic, horns blaring, neon signs flickering as vendors opened shop. But to me, it all felt distant. My entire focus was on the small bundle of files in my lap. The general pulled the SUV into an underground parking garage beneath a newspaper headquarters. "This is it. If anyone can break the story wide open, it's them." As we stepped out, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us. My hand tightened around the evidence. The general's gaze swept the garage, every shadow a potential threat. We moved quickly, climbing the concrete stairs into the newsroom above. Reporters hunched over desks, the hum of computers filling the air. A woman in a blazer looked up, surprise flashing across her face as she saw the general at my side. "General Hayes, what?" He cut her off with a firm voice. "We need your editor, now." Within minutes, we sat in a glass-walled office with the editor-in-chief, a grizzled man with sharp eyes. He leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "You'd better have something extraordinary to bring here, because if you don't, walking into my office with armed escorts will raise questions I don't want to answer." My hands trembled as I set the folder on his desk. "You want extraordinary? My father died protecting this. My sister betrayed him for power. And Roth," my voice broke, but I forced the words out. "Roth runs everything from the shadows. This is proof." The editor opened the folder. His eyes scanned the first page, his expression hardened. He flipped to the next, then the next, his face pale. "Good God." He looked up at me. "You realize if I publish this, it won't just topple a few officers. It'll tear through the entire chain of command. They'll come after me, after my staff, after you." "I know," I whispered, "but the world needs to know. My father believed the truth was worth dying for, and so do I." The editor sat back, silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. We'll need time to verify, but if this is real, and I believe it is, then you've just lit a fuse no one can put out. Relief washed over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally fulfilling my father's legacy. But then, glass shattered. Bullets ripped through the office window, shattering the silence into chaos. Reporters screamed, diving for cover. Papers flew into the air like frightened birds. DOWN, the general barked, dragging me to the ground. I clutched the hard drive, my heart hammering. Outside the broken window, black SUVs screeched to a halt. Men in dark suits poured out, rifles raised. Roth's men. The editor crawled across the floor, his face pale with terror. They're here, they'll kill us all. The general pulled his weapon, eyes blazing. Not if we fight back. The newsroom erupted in chaos. Reporters scrambled under desks, the crack of gunfire echoing through the hall. Claire, the general shouted, shoving the hard drive into my hands. Get this out of here, now. I shook my head, panic surging. I can't just leave you. You can and you will. His eyes locked on mine, fierce and unyielding. Your father trusted you, I trust you. If you stay, we lose everything. If you run, we still have a chance. Tears blurred my vision, my throat burned, but I knew he was right. I grabbed the hard drive, tucking it close, and bolted toward the stairwell. Behind me, the general's voice thundered as he fired back, holding them off. Bullets whined past me, sparks flying from the walls. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but I didn't stop. At the bottom of the stairwell, I burst into the parking garage. Sunlight slanted in through the exit ramp. For a moment, I thought I was free. But then, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar. My sister. Her arm was still bandaged, her face pale, but her eyes burned with hatred. A pistol gleamed in her hand. Going somewhere, sister, she sneered. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The hard drive weighed heavy in my jacket. Her lips curled into a smile. I told you, you don't know how deep this goes. Roth owns everything, you can't fight him, you can't fight me. Hand it over, and maybe I'll let you live. My chest heaved. My hand slowly slid toward my waistband, where my pistol was holstered. But then I remembered my father's words. The truth is your only weapon. I pulled out the hard drive instead, holding it high. You want it, then take it. But know this, if I die, the world still gets it. I've already sent copies. The story is already moving. Her eyes widened, fury flashing. You're bluffing. I took a step closer, my voice shaking but strong. Try me. The parking garage fell silent. For a heartbeat, it was just the two of us, sisters, enemies, torn apart by betrayal. Her finger hovered over the trigger, my breath caught. And then sirens wailed outside. Police vehicles screeched into the garage. Officers poured in, guns drawn. My sister's face twisted with rage. She hissed like a cornered animal, then turned and bolted into the shadows. The police surrounded me, shouting orders, but all I could do was clutch the hard drive to my chest. Because for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about family anymore. This was about justice. And I wasn't going to stop until the world knew the truth. The newsroom attack had left me shaken, but not broken. The hard drive still pressed against my chest like a heartbeat. Every step I took echoed with one truth. If I failed now, my father's sacrifice would mean nothing. By nightfall, the files were in safe hands. Not in a courtroom that Roth could manipulate, not in the military archives he controlled, but in the hands of journalists across the city, across the country. I remembered what the editor told me as he copied the drive. We'll publish at dawn, and once it's out, no one can silence it. Not Roth, not your sister, not anyone. For the first time, I felt hope. But dawn came with fire. I sat in a quiet cafe, the world outside just beginning to stir. A television above the counter flickered to life with breaking news. Shocking military leak. FILES reveal widespread corruption. The anchor's voice trembled with urgency. This morning, multiple outlets simultaneously released classified documents exposing treason at the highest levels of command. Evidence includes audio tapes, financial records, and photographs linking decorated officers to illegal arms deals and the deaths of countless soldiers. Images flashed across the screen, the very files my father had protected, now out in the world. Names, faces, proof. My hands shook around my coffee cup. My father's words echoed again, "The truth is your only weapon." And now it was finally unleashed. By noon, the world was on fire. Protests erupted outside government buildings. Soldiers refused orders from corrupt commanders. Journalists dug deeper, pulling thread after thread, exposing everything. General Roth appeared on television, his face grim but defiant. "These lies are attacks on our honor. Do not believe them." But as he spoke, another tape was released, his own voice, recorded as he ordered weapons moved and problems silenced. The world saw him for what he was. And his empire began to crumble. But victory came with a price. That evening I received a call, my sister. Her voice was hoarse, broken. "Claire, it's over for me. They've turned on me. Roth abandoned me. I don't know where else to go." I stood silent, the phone heavy in my hand. Memories of us as children flashed through my mind, running through fields, laughing, dreaming. Then memories of her betrayal, her venom, her gun aimed at me. "You chose this path," I said quietly, "and now you face its end." She sobbed softly on the other end. "I just wanted to be seen, to matter." My throat tightened. "You mattered, but you sold your soul to men who never cared about you. That's not survival, that's surrender." There was silence, then the line went dead. I never heard from her again. Weeks passed. Roth was arrested, dragged from his mansion in disgrace, his medals stripped from his chest. Trials shook the nation. Some officers fled the country, others begged for mercy. The rot was finally exposed. And my father's name. Cleared, honored, celebrated. At a ceremony held in the Capitol, his photograph stood on a stage draped with flags. I wore my uniform, standing tall, my mother at my side, tears shining in her eyes. The general saluted me as the announcer's voice rang out. "For bravery in silence, and for carrying the truth into light, Commander Claire Hayes, daughter of the late Colonel Hayes, we honor you today." The crowd rose to their feet. Applause thundered. But for me, the loudest sound was the quiet voice in my heart, my father's voice, proud and steady. That night I walked alone to his grave. The air was cool, the grass damp beneath my boots. I knelt, tracing the name carved into stone. "Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking. "It's done, they know the truth, they can't bury you anymore." The wind rustled the trees, soft and gentle, like his hand once on my shoulder. Tears slid down my cheeks. "I spent so long thinking I was your disgrace, that I failed you, but I see now, you never wanted me to be perfect. You just wanted me to be brave enough to carry the truth." I laid my medal on his stone. "This belongs to you." As I walked away from the grave, I felt lighter. Not because the battle was over, corruption never truly dies, but because I had finally carried his torch into the light. And I knew now, without doubt. I wasn't my sister's shadow. I wasn't my father's failure. I was his legacy. Truth cannot be silenced forever. No matter how deep corruption runs, no matter how powerful the lies, one voice carrying courage can change everything. Betrayal may cut deep, but justice heals.